Hello, Kids Cook Real Food listeners. I'm Katie Kimball for the Healthy Parenting Connector. And what a treat I have for you today. It's a treat for me because I discovered Janna Kerr through just some email interaction. She's been a reader and a member of our community forever and happens to also be a great resource. And I said, we got to do an interview. We got to chat about what this primary food thing is and how you help moms. So I'm thrilled to introduce Janna Kerr from At the Well Coaching today. Thank you so much for being here, Janna.
Oh, thank you, Katie. I am so excited.
It's going to be a fun chat. So I will do your official introduction and then we're going to talk about how you help moms take care of themselves better so they can take care of their families better. Janna Kerr is an IAHC certified integrative nutrition health coach. Don't worry, we'll define what that is in question number one. And founder of At the Well Coaching. She serves exhausted Christian moms by meeting them at the well in the midst of their day to day, empowering them to love and care for their bodies so they can fulfill their God-given mission to this world. Janna's a mom of three, so she knows the struggles of not having enough energy to make dinner some days, let alone the elusive finding the balance. In 2016, though, Janna was able to shift her focus from the nonprofit world to the health and wellness industry. Personal connection with her clients is the best part of her day, and she's passionate about giving them simple, realistic, and actionable tools, which is why she's a perfect fit for the Healthy Parenting Connector. That's exactly what I love to do. So what's your story? Like how it sounds like you used to work in the nonprofit industry. How did you shift? Why did you shift? And how does that fill you up?
Oh, yeah. Sure. Thanks, Katie. So I actually discovered health coaching. Nothing is by accident, but uh, I attended a free talk at our local library given by a health coach. And I'd already been kind of in the health and wellness world for several years as an affiliate with a health food company. And I was just shocked at what I thought was common knowledge. The women in the room, their jaws were on the floor. They had no idea that sugar was addicting, like all these things that I just kind of took for granted. Um, and so when the talk finished, I went right up to the presenter, introduced myself, asked if I could take her out to breakfast. We got together and met up, and she told me that this thing that I'd been longing to do was actually called health coaching, and told me all about this world. I didn't even know that it was a job out there. All those years ago. So I was completely sold. I was ready to go back to school right away. Like this is my favorite part. Like on the affiliate side, the walking with my customers is my favorite part. And so that is what I get to do as a health coach, just a lot more intentionally.
I
So I was
love it.
going to jump
Yeah,
in,
no,
but
your heart is so passionate and so in this. So go ahead and
yeah.
finish your story.
Oh, sure. So, God's timing, it all works in God's timing. That was many years ago. And I was, like I said, ready to jump in, go back to school, start coaching, and I got pregnant. So, love our daughter, but that was not the time. So I actually wasn't planning on even going back to school until this past September. And, God's timing is perfect because I was given a grant opportunity a couple years ago, and I was able to start coaching 2.5 years earlier than was kind of in my plan. And so I'm so thrilled to be here and to get to be doing this work. It's just wonderful.
How cool is that? So it sounds like you've been doing the health coaching for a number of years. You've got your feet are wet, your roots are
Mhm.
grounded, and I missed a little. It's going to be question two where we define what is this thing? What does a certified integrative nutrition health coach do other than give podcast hosts tongue twisters?
Yeah, it is a mouthful, I know. And I get that question a lot. Like, what exactly is a health coach? Are you a counselor? Are you a life coach? Are you a dietitian, a nutritionist? It's very confusing. So, um, my job as a coach is to, at the end of the day, respect that my client knows their body best. I don't. My job is to just ask questions and to create a space where my clients can be challenged, explore, and figure out what's going to work best for them. And then the really important part is I help keep them accountable to that. So we all have big grand ideas of, what we want to change, or we know what we should be doing. It's just really hard to do. And that's where the role of the health coach comes in. So I may occasionally kind of teach on topics, but a lot of coaching is just asking questions and again, space. And we work on diet. A lot of my clients want to make changes with the food that they're eating. But that integrative piece, the integrative nutrition piece, is all of these other areas that we're going to talk about today. It's all the other things that impact our health. And that's where like all the aha moments really go off.
Yes, because while diet is very important, obviously we put things in our mouth probably more than 3 times a day. If you're anything like Katie Kimball, or my kids or everybody's kids, right? That's super important to our health, but it's not the only lane that we stay in. And so just to clarify, you're not a nutritionist or a dietitian. You're likely not the person sort of creating the script or creating the prescription. There's no doctor. You're not working with patients, they're clients. But what I love about what you do, because I know a lot of like naturopathic doctors and integrative doctors who give amazing advice to their patients and then nothing gets done. And the good ones hire a team of health coaches to
Mhm.
then take over and say, okay, how can I be your calendar? How can I be your accountability? How can I, in some ways, be your best brain? Right? Like we have our best intentions as moms when we walk out of an appointment, whether it's for ourselves or our children, but our best intentions don't always reside in our best brains. And we don't always have access to our best brains right in the midst of our schedule.
For sure.
For example, 1 year ago, at my then 8-year-old's well child checkup, we talked with the pediatrician about expanding his palate and how much that would help. And it's literally been in my calendar. Like I looked into it a little bit. I got a couple prices. Did we do an initial evaluation with another practitioner? No, we did not. And it's been 12 months. That is the kind of thing, like that's a tiny minor example, right? That's in some ways the kind of thing a health coach would then keep track of for you. I think. Am I on the right track there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And that's a great way to think about it as like bridging that gap between what you know you should do or what the doctors told you to do and you actually doing it. Kind of
mhm.
like help you fill in those gaps and keep people accountable.
I know every single person listening has already thought of an appointment either for themselves or a loved one who they know, right? Where a doctor or a therapist or someone has told them, you should do this, you should start this habit. And nothing was done and no change was seen in one's health, right? Even if the advice was maybe very,
Mhm.
very good. And that, so it's so
Mhm.
important for us to have people like you to health coach to take that time with the people. And Janna, you say that your focus is helping moms balance all of life, but it really caught my ear when you and I were emailing together and you talked about primary food, but I realized, oh my gosh, she's not actually talking about food. So what are primary foods?
You're right, yeah. So primary food is not actually food as we think of it, the food that we, put on our plates and in our mouths. As I am trained, so I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and in my training there, they give us this concept of primary foods. So these are all of the non-food sources of nourishment that impact our health. It's all the areas of our lives that end up impacting the food that ends up on our plates, which of course impacts our health. So the way I was trained is these are primary and the food we eat is actually secondary, which was a huge mindset shift for me. And it's been so neat to wrap my head around that and how my clients do that. Uh, people are probably curious what are these 12 areas? What are these areas of primary food? And some of them you're probably like, "Oh, of course, this impacts my health," but others tend to catch people off guard and kind of surprise them. So they are spirituality, career, education, finances, joy, creativity, home environment, home cooking, physical activity, health, relationships, and social life.
All right, I counted
So,
12, which is super
yep.
interesting. Do you ever do like focus on one for each month of the year or anything like that? Or is that are they all so integrative? Like that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Do we start one at a time and build blocks, or is it all just one big pot?
It's one big pot, and I always encourage my clients to choose when they're looking at all 12, it can feel very overwhelming. I've had some clients who are like, "They all stink right now, like, none of them are going well." And like, it's okay, take a deep breath, take a deep breath. We focus on one. Always just start with one. So I'm sure as people were listening to that list, there was one that kind of jumped out, is like, oh, I'd never thought of that, or oh, yeah, this part of my life is way out of whack. Um, that's where I encourage people to start. And I use these, I kind of use it as a monthly check in with myself. So at the end of every month, I take a look at these 12 areas and I kind of rate them. And I have a little activity that I do. And it just helps give me that good, like, pull back from all the nitty gritty day to day and just pull back and see, am I looking at all of these areas of my health and what should I focus on in the coming month? So that's how I use it. I know people who take a look at it every day and say, how am I doing today? And what do I want to focus on? You can kind of use these areas however you would like. It's so flexible. You can even rename them.
Uh-huh.
So
They're so
if
interesting because for me, some popped out as you mentioned, kind of the obvious ones. Oh yeah, physical movement, sleep. I think you said sleep, right?
sleep's not in there,
It's
actually, I
not
wanted
in
to talk
there.
about that.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So
see, so I shouldn't
sleep.
even say. There were a couple that popped out like, okay, there's the food one. I heard home cooking, I
Mhm.
heard movement. So there are some that like, yes, we've heard it. I absolutely, so many moms say that area still stinks, even though I know it's important. But some were very unique that I don't think we talk about enough. Creativity was one that
Mhm.
stuck out to me. I would love you to start with sort of those like lesser known, maybe the unpopular
Sure,
kids, the underdogs. Like let's talk about those and unpack them a little bit. Like what does it mean
sure.
when you say creativity? Because that one gives me a little bit of stress. I'm like, I don't do creativity anymore. I don't have time. I was super creative when I was 12. No idea how to get
Yep,
back there. Help me out.
exactly, and that's what I tell my clients. I'm like, creativity does not mean that you are artistic. That is not the same thing. So creativity is just what sparks your imagination. Creativity and joy really go together. So, and again, it's unique to everyone how you want to define creativity. For me, I kind of put creativity and joy together because something that helps me be creative is probably going to also be bringing me joy in some sense. But I love to think about, when I was creating my coaching program, I was using a really creative part of my brain that I hadn't used in a long time, having been a stay at home mom. When I make a new recipe in the kitchen, I am being creative. When I come up with a way to help my children calm down and turn something into a game, I'm being creative. There's so many different ways that we can use our creative brain, not just arts and crafts, because I'm not a very arts and craftsy person. I'm not a Pinterest mom. I'm more of an Amazon Prime mom. So definitely.
When a lot of times when I talk to parents about teaching kids to cook, I do focus on that creativity aspect, but that there's sort of two arms of creativity in the kitchen. That one is that artistic expression, so to speak, and the other is the simple act of creating, right? That we are making something with our hands. So if I'm cooking now, for a lot of moms, cooking is a task, a chore, a drudgery, obligation. Like, does it still count as creativity if you don't sort of mentally lean into that? Or is there a mindset shift that needs to happen with like the same activity? We walk into the kitchen, we make some food. How do we lean into the creative part of that?
That's an awesome question. I think if creativity, I would say, is something that you want to focus on, absolutely. Taking some things that you don't necessarily enjoy doing and seeing how you might be able to shift your mindset around them or how you might be able to bring some creativity in that would definitely support that area of primary focus. But then if it is not something that you're focusing on, then don't let it stress you out. That I never want to, 'cause when people see this list of 12, they're also like, "Oh my gosh, that's so much." And if something's gonna add more stress and more pressure, then now's not maybe the time to be addressing it. So,
Okay, sure. It's like, I know it's like a pro and a con, right? When we talk about
mhm,
adding creativity, it's like, oh, I don't want one more thing on my to-do list. But if you can say, well, your cooking is already on your to-do list. So what if like you could take 0 more minutes and just have that feeling of creativity? Like I said, does it count? Does
mhm,
it count for like the tally mark? Or if you added just a little
yeah,
thing like I'm going to plate things beautifully today, right? Or I'm going to try a
Mhm.
recipe that I've never made before. Like that's a total act of creativity, but it can be
Yeah.
super stressful sometimes, like if things aren't going well. So
Mhm.
I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of balance to be found in
Mhm.
that. What are some of the other underdogs? Because I noticed creativity, but I know there were others that I thought, oh, those are unique.
Education is one that I think confuses a lot of people because we all think education, like going to school, college, grad school, and it can mean that for sure. Maybe you want to go back and get a master's so that you can get a job and help support your family. But education can also mean just what are you curious about? Do you want to learn more about the plants growing in your backyard? Do you want to learn how to take beautiful pictures? Do you want to learn how to cook? It could be anything that you want to learn, or your hobbies would fall under education. If you are a homeschooler, this could be like a whole different area of, how do you prepare yourself to then homeschool your children, and what do you need to learn so that you can best homeschool them. There's so many cool ways we can look at it, beyond just the typical education, K to 12 and college.
Yeah, I
Especially
love
for
that.
stay-at-home moms, we're like, we don't need education. I'm done. Like I'm home. What? Why do I need education? But it's important to have
Mhm.
something to focus on.
I feel like I hear that. It's very clear that we do need to keep learning, right? I mean, that's the
Hmm.
whole point of a primary food. It's not that you are creating a primary food, you're just defining what's already sort of welling up within us. You hear so
Hmm.
many people who are stay-at-home moms say, "Oh, I just can't wait. I have to get back to work so I can use my brain." And I think, I
Yeah.
don't know, that's so linear. Like it's such a single answer, I guess, to what really could have so many answers. Like I've been a work at home mom for a while, but I was a stay at home mom for a long time, and I just feel like I never stopped learning. There was always
Mhm.
something
Yeah.
about parenting or about keeping the home or, oh my goodness, cooking. Like I had so much to learn about cooking in those early
Mhm.
years. That's, it is a full-time job, and why not have that like parental or homemaker professional development and lean into the
Mhm.
fact that, yeah, I want to learn more. I want to make this part of my day. Um,
Mhm.
if you were to like, I want like a quotable, like primary food is what? Like, how would you define it? So I can tell people like, oh, I had this great interview today about primary foods. What are those? Like I want to be able to say it in a single sentence.
Sure. It's everything in our life that impacts the food on our plate that's not food.
Ooh, that impacts the food on our plate or that impacts our body.
Well, both. But
Yeah.
if you want like a one sentence, the non-food areas of our lives that impact the food on our plate.
Okay. Yeah, it's super, super interesting. So what are some of the benefits that yourself and your clients have found when you start to intentionally focus on these 12 areas?
These are huge. The biggest one I would say is just the sense of awareness. We are so used to just plowing through the day. We just go. We just get on autopilot and we go. And so when my clients, when we stop and assess these areas, and just it can take 30 seconds, and I'm not talking half an hour, just we give ourselves that opportunity to see what's going well and where are things that, may not be where we want them to be. And one of my recent clients, she looked at these areas for the first time and she got on a coaching call with me, and she said it was like a fog was being lifted. She had two kids under two, and she said like that fog of the last 2 years just kind of went away as she looked at these areas because she had just stopped seeing them. She was so in, I mean, those are hard years. Those are hard. And when she shared that with me, I mean, it broke my heart because I've also been there, but it brought me so much joy too, because now she has that awareness. She didn't even change anything yet. She just was aware of these areas. And all of a sudden, she was like, oh, I can do something about this. I can pick one and start moving forward, but she hadn't even seen them. She just kind
Yeah.
of forgotten they were there.
That's so powerful because we do sometimes feel like that fog needs time to lift, but perhaps there are other ingredients, right? The anti-fog
Mhm. Yeah.
ingredients. So what have you seen? That's amazing that she felt a change before she made a change. Like, how cool is
Mhm.
that?
Yeah.
What about some clients maybe like who did make some changes? And again, I'm so curious to hear, like, can you change one area and feel it, or do you have to kind of like touch lots of them in the big melting pot? What do you want to tell us about that?
Oh gosh, I have so many. It's hard just thinking of a couple. But in the line of cooking, just 'cause I know we all love to cook here, or even if we don't love to cook, we know how to cook thanks to Kids Cook Real Food. But I had a client who she really struggled with home cooking. When she looked at her primary food, that was the area that she really struggled with, and she didn't necessarily enjoy it. She's a full-time teacher, little one at home, and just didn't have a lot of time, and so they ate out a lot, and she knew that wasn't healthy for them. She really wanted to change how they were eating, but it kinda came back to this dislike of home cooking and lack of time. And so when she looked at that area and decided to focus on it, she just picked breakfast. So we talked about meal planning, threw that out there as an option, but that was too much for her. She did not feel like she was in a place where she could sit down and meal plan dinners. That felt really overwhelming. So we pulled back. We're like, well, what's one small thing you can do to make some improvement in this area? And so she decided to go with breakfast. And it was so neat. Our last call, she said it was something I never thought I'd do, be cooking breakfast every morning. And as a teacher, she's up really early. She has quite a commute. And she was just so happy that by changing one meal, she's feeding herself better, her husband, her son, but then it started trickling over into she was packing some healthier snacks for work, and then she was packing herself a healthier lunch, and she noticed how she was feeling better. So that's just one little example. Another is I had a client who, and I think a lot of moms can relate to this. She was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, and she was a caregiver to an ill child. And so she was very isolated for many years. And during my program, she realized that she was really lacking in the primary food area of social life. She had been so disconnected for so long, and she felt like she didn't even really know where to start. So she reached out to one friend, sent a text. She said it was so awkward. And they started texting back and forth, got together, started to meet up, and kind of rekindled that old relationship. And after at the end of the 12-week program on our final call, she shared that the week before, my client had had a flare up of some nerve pain. And so she was in a lot of pain, couldn't do a whole lot. And in the past, she would have just pushed through, done it on her own, or not gotten anything done that day, and just felt so alone. And instead, because she had this friendship, she texted this friend. The friend dropped everything and came over to her house and helped her that day. And it was just so beautiful that like one little thing, could kind of rekindle that. And it was encouraging her to then do more. And then she got a part-time job cleaning houses, and then she felt fulfilled that way. And it's just really neat how it's one little thing can be the catalyst, and all these other little areas do start changing.
It makes so much sense. We say it in the negative all the time, like if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. That, like, again, the negative, like with kids, but everything really is that way, right? If you make one positive change, your body and your soul just crave more, which is so, so cool. I've had a similar
Mhm.
experience with the social life. I was a caregiver for my mom, and it was only for 5 months, but I felt like I had to say no to everything for 5 months. And so coming out of that, I really committed to, like, I need to be more intentional about saying yes. And a good friend from way back when our 18-year-old babies were babies. We used to see each other a lot back then, but hadn't really connected in 12 years. And she came to my mom's funeral, and I said, you know what? We need to get together. Let's just go to church and take a walk. And then we did that, and it felt so great to reconnect. We just put it in our calendar for the last Wednesday of every month. And last week I was super busy. I'm like, I don't have time to do this, but I'm going to do it. And I came away so edified, so fulfilled, and just thinking, why would I ever miss this? But it took like Google Calendar, recurring reminder, you know what I mean? Because I wouldn't schedule it every month because I'd feel like I might be too busy. So that whole awareness thing of just realizing what is important helps so much. And I'm
Mhm.
really curious if you feel like any of those areas are more important than another, or how, or, and if not, how would you tell someone where to start?
Sure. Yeah, that is a very good question. So the general answer is no, there is not one area that's most important. But at any given point in time, as you're looking at these areas, there's probably one that's rising to the surface that's more important at that moment in time. So again, I do this every month. My It looks different for me every month, and I can kind of see, oh, physical activity hasn't been so great. I need to really work on that, or maybe my social life is not where I want it to be. So then that becomes the priority for you. And I will caveat though, caveat this, here we go, if I can speak clearly, by saying that for me personally and in the way I coach, the primary food area of spirituality is the most important. So I use the analogy of a fancy table setting, like at a wedding, where the table is set real beautifully. And for me, in this analogy, our faith is the tablecloth. It is the foundation for everything else. Everything else rests on top of it, and it impacts how we see the world, how we interact with others and ourselves. And as a Christian, I'm called to put God first before all things. That's kind of the top one. And in that analogy, though, the primary foods are the charger plate, like that fancy serving plate that our food isn't actually on, but that serves as the foundation and makes everything else pretty and nice and more beautiful. And then the dinner plate, obviously, is the
Mm.
food that we eat. So
Oh,
I
very
use that
cool.
analogy a lot.
Yeah, I like that visual. It helps us understand how it all sort of works together to affect the food that we do end up putting in our mouths. And I totally agree with
Mhm,
you on the tablecloth. I think a lot of our listeners will as well. And if you don't, then there are other ways to probably
mhm.
look at the tablecloth, I would think. Let's get really practical. How can listeners take this information right now and start putting it into practice in their own lives?
Absolutely. I would challenge all the listeners to just do one thing this week and notice. Giving yourself that gift of awareness is huge. So even if you can't remember all the 12 areas, just kind of notice your life this week. And you don't have to write anything down, don't have to be judgmental. This is non-judgmental curiosity, just noticing the different areas of your life. And again, one might kind of rise to the surface that then the next step would be say, okay, what do I want to do here? What's one small thing I can do to support my health in this area? But it isn't.
Let's list those 12 again. And
Yeah.
and I don't know, I might even interrupt you and like we'll dig into one for a couple sentences and then kind of keep going because I think this would be a
Yeah.
really good point for listeners to go, okay, let me start to think which one or two rises to the surface for me today.
Mhm.
All right, let's hear them.
Sure. So spirituality or faith, career, education, finances, joy, creativity, home environment,
So what
home
does that
cooking,
entail? What does home
home
environment entail?
environment,
Like literally the things, the furniture and decor?
that and just kind of anything relating to your home. So do you live in the city where it's loud and that stresses you out? Do you live on the farm and you have lots of open space? Do you like your neighbors? For me, it's like, do I have a lot of natural light? It's just how any aspect of your home, but it can absolutely be the furniture, the plants, the layout of your house, especially if you think about your bedroom, how that impacts your sleep. So I
Okay.
often think of sleep as falling under home environment.
And some of those are really difficult to change, right? The layout of
Yeah.
your home, but
Mhm,
maybe on that
mhm,
when it's more of how can I best use
mhm.
what I have, right? I might not
Yeah,
move, but how can I
right,
adapt? Okay, okay, that one's super
right. Mhm,
interesting. And we
mhm.
got a couple more. What are the rest?
So home cooking,
Mhm.
physical activity, health, relationships, and social life.
Okay. Oh, relationships and social life are separate. Tell me a little more
Yes.
about those two being different.
Sure. So relationships are more, I would say, like immediate family, like those intimate relationships. So I think of that as, am I getting quality time with my husband? Am I being present to my children?
Mm.
Those would be how I categorize, how I define my primary food area of relationship. And then social life is kind of anything outside my home. Again, that's how I define it. So social life is, church community, school community, girlfriends, anything like that that fills me up that way.
Mhm. Okay, that makes total sense that they would be completely separate because we've got to assess very differently, or like spousal and parental relationships, and then yeah, the rest totally makes sense. So as parents, we're always thinking about caring for ourselves and making sure that our cup has something in it. Might not be full, but it's got something in it to pour out, right? But also, of course, we're thinking about parenting our kids and wanting them to have the foundations that we're learning about as far as health and wellness go. So, do you think
Mhm.
there are things we can do to help our kids also understand the importance of primary foods and like just start those habits young?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say for the 6 and under crowd, um, it's probably just more them watching you and seeing how you are living. Do they see you exercise? They watch what you eat. They're always watching us. So for the littles, it's more about just setting that example. But I think as they start getting a little bit older, it's so helpful. And I know Katie, you've had so many great people on the show talking about how helping kids handle emotions and things like that, and some of these primary food areas really come into play there, as helping them notice when they might be feeling lonely. Do they need more social life or more relationships? Do they feel like they need to move their body? Have they been stuck in front of a screen too long? And so just helping them notice those things at a young age is such a gift. I wish I had known those things when I was younger and wasn't learning them so much later in life. So that's just a huge gift we can give our kids. And then for the older kids, I think, teenagers, high school, college, having those conversations. What brings you joy? How do you enjoy expressing yourself? What's your creative expression? And then how might that translate as far as a career or further education? I mean, those are big conversations to have with our big kids, and so helping they're all connected is so helpful.
Yeah, I love
And I
that
have to
really.
mention food too.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, I love that awareness is your first step, for your moms. And so it makes sense that if we can help our kids have that awareness already, they'll enter adulthood one step further than all of us.
Mhm.
And now when we think about, you talked about how different primary foods will like kind of raise their hand, so to speak, as the one or two that you might need to focus on. I feel like if you were to focus on one, but then you stop kind of focusing on it, all the problems that you had in that primary food area would return unless you were able to keep some habits going. Right. So I would love to hear a little bit about the importance of habits and how how you
Mhm.
can maybe lay some of those down, keep them, and then like work on the next primary food without that one like going crazy again.
Absolutely, and I do a lot of this in my program. We talk about I call them easy buttons. So, letting doing one thing at a time and, focusing on one area at a time. So I talk about, having a plan in place or systems, habits, and routines. Those are kind of the 4 easy buttons that I talk about. So again, building habits, they're just those automatic, we don't even think about it kind of thing. And I think we interchange the word habit and routine a lot. I think what a lot of moms crave is routine, maybe not necessarily habits. So it's a tiny word shift, but I love having, like a bedtime routine. My kids have one, I have one. It's really helpful. And that I a couple clients who have really focused on sleep and their bedtime routines. So it's again, I always tell my clients, I do it myself one thing at a time. Any type of habit, routine, whatever it is, you have to start with one thing, get a good handle on that, no matter how long it takes you. No one's timing you. Get a good handle on that and then add the next thing.
Always
So
a good
yeah.
tip for sure. Well, tell us a little bit about how you work with people. I know a couple times here you do a challenge and then you have a 12-week program. So what do both of those entail?
Sure. So yeah, coming up soon is my Healthy Habits Reset. I do these quarterly, and the one after Thanksgiving is always my favorite. We're full of Halloween candy and Thanksgiving food, and it's a great time to kind of pull back and look at some of these habits that may have fallen by the wayside. Which again, we always need to be bringing back that awareness. It's very easy to just go, go, go. So it's a great 10-day challenge. People get to pick which of the 9 habits they want to focus on. You can focus on 1 or 2 or 9, it doesn't matter. And we support each other in community. So the community really is the beautiful piece of that. Everyone's supporting each other and loving on each other and helping each other. I have no idea what to cook today, or I didn't get my workout in today. And what do I do? So that's a really fun group to be part of. So
Very
that's
cool. And
coming
the
up
Healthy
in
Habit
2027.
Reset, that's a free program.
Yes.
Awesome. And then
So
your
it's
12-week, yeah, to work with you as a coach, what does that feel like for someone?
so that is I work one-on-one, but I primarily work through this 12-week virtual coaching program called the Exhausted Mom Solution. So we everything's grounded in prayer, but we talk about food and sleep and stress, and all these primary foods are woven throughout the program. And it's just really beautiful to help women grow not just in their health but in their faith as well.
Mhm.
Getting a sense of how food impacts our energy, focusing again on those different areas of primary food, and cook more and sleep better and better respond to stress, and really just have some great mindset shifts through the program.
That's awesome. And you can find out a lot more about what Janna does at thewellcoaching.com or at thewellcoaching.com/primary foods, I think.
Primary
It's
food, yeah, no F.
food, singular. It wasn't
Primary
showing up
food.
well for me. So we definitely want to send you over there. We'll make sure that those links are easy to find wherever we share this interview. Now, Janna, I always love to leave parents with a super practical step, one thing they can accomplish right away when this interview ends. What should that be for you?
I think they should sit 30 seconds, close eyes if you can, and choose one next step you want to take. Doesn't matter what area it's in, doesn't even have to be health related, but give yourself that gift of that awareness and what's the one next thing you need to do today.
Beautiful. And letting each person kind of figure that out for themselves. And if the voice in your head, by the way, ladies, is saying, I'll never do it anyway. I won't stick with it. I can't do goals, blah, blah, blah. Right. If that's sort of the negative Nancy in your head, perhaps that is a sign that you are exactly the right person for health coaching, right? Whether it's with Janna or some other kind of health coaching program, because maybe you need a little someone to hold your hand. And in some ways, that's like fulfilling our social connection primary food in a way, isn't
Mhm.
it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, well, this has been a lovely conversation. It's got me thinking. I feel like I'm gonna rewind the recording and write down those 12 primary foods. Of course, that'll be in our skim notes as well for this episode. And just really thinking about it and maybe writing down some goals, maybe just mentally thinking about some goals. Very
Mhm.
practical step. I appreciate you so much, Janna. And again, everyone, this has been a show of the Healthy Parenting Connector, where we try to help connect you, parents who just want to raise healthy, independent kids, which sometimes means being your best self, with the experts who have the information you need. I'm Katie Kimball for Kids Cook Real Food, and I'll see you next time.